Before we begin, a quick note. The opinions and analysis shared on Truth Seekers are our own interpretations of published research and should not be used as medical, financial, or professional advice. Always consult qualified professionals for decisions affecting your health or well-being.
And with that out of the way, welcome to Truth Seekers. I'm Bill Morrison.
And I'm Alex Barrett. Today is December 8th, 2025, and we're talking about the diet soda paradox. Do artificial sweeteners actually make you gain weight?
Let's get to the truth.
Right. So I'm scrolling through my feed this morning and I see this headline. Artificial sweeteners cause weight gain and metabolic disorders. And my first thought is, hang on, aren't these the exact products people switch to when they're trying to lose weight?
Yeah, that's what makes this claim so interesting. It's basically saying the thing you're using to avoid sugar is actually making your health worse.
Which would be quite the problem.
The headline comes from this massive review, 223 studies synthesized, published in Food Research International last November.
November last year, or
2025, yeah, so pretty recent.
okay, and 223 studies sounds properly comprehensive.
It does. But there's a gap between here's what we found in 223 studies and artificial sweeteners cause weight gain. Because when you actually read what the researchers said, they called sweeteners a double edged sword, meaning both benefits and risks.
Of course, the headlines just ran with one edge.
Exactly.
But I'm genuinely curious about this one because I know so many people who drink diet soda thinking it's the healthier choice. Like my entire newsroom when I was at The Guardian ran on Diet Coke. Are we saying they've been fooling themselves this whole time?
That's what we need to figure out. Do you still drink it?
What, Diet Coke?
Yeah.
Sometimes. I mean, if I'm going to have a fizzy drink, I'll go for diet. But I'm not knocking back 6 cans a day like some people.
Right, yeah. When I was doing A/B testing, we basically had a mini fridge full of it. Everyone just constantly drinking it.
And were you all enormous?
No, actually. Well, that's kind of the interesting thing here.
Okay, so wait, what were we saying?
Whether people have been fooling themselves.
Right. So what's the evidence?
So the evidence here gets really interesting when you look at what kind of studies we're talking about. Because two things converged to make this blow up now.
Go on.
First, that Food Research International review from November gave media outlets a fresh hook. Second, there's been this wave of gut microbiome research showing that sweeteners change your gut bacteria composition. And that microbiome angle is catnip for health journalists.
The microbiome is having quite the moment. Everything affects it, apparently.
And that's actually true in this case. Artificial sweeteners do alter your gut bacteria. That part's documented.
Okay.
But there's a massive gap between changes your gut bacteria and causes metabolic disease.
Right, but let's back up. The claim is specifically that sweeteners cause weight gain. Where's that coming from?
Observational studies.
Meaning?
Large cohort studies that followed people over time and found that people who drink diet soda tend to have higher body weight and higher rates of metabolic syndrome. Those associations are real, they show up consistently.
So the evidence exists. What am I missing?
The direction of causation. When you look at observational studies, you're watching what people choose to eat and measuring outcomes. You're not controlling what they consume.
Right.
So when we see that diet soda drinkers weigh more, we have to ask, did the diet soda cause the weight gain, or did the weight gain cause the diet soda consumption?
Oh, hang on. Wait, didn't we? This feels familiar. Didn't we talk about this exact thing? The dark chocolate episode,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, with the diabetes thing.
where people who were already healthy were eating dark chocolate, and everyone assumed the chocolate was making them healthy, but actually.
It was backwards. Healthy people choose dark chocolate.
Right. So this is the same thing?
Pretty much textbook reverse causality. Yeah.
Huh. Okay, so you're saying people who are already struggling with their weight are more likely to switch to diet products.
Exactly. Because if you're someone who's gained weight drinking regular soda, what's the first thing you do?
Switch to diet, but you're already overweight when you make the switch.
Right. So now you're in the diet soda drinker category and you're also in the overweight category. But the timeline is backwards from what the headlines claim.
That's actually quite clever when you think about it. The study design isn't wrong exactly, it's just.
It's answering a different question. It's telling you who drinks diet soda, not what diet soda does.
So, how do we know which direction it actually goes?
Randomized controlled trials. Instead of watching what people choose, you randomly assign people to consume sweeteners or not, then measure what happens.
And
And here's where the story completely flips. Multiple RCTs. Higgins published two in 2018 and 2019. There's a 2023 study in Nature. When you randomly assign people to consume artificial sweeteners versus sugar or nothing, you don't see weight gain.
wait, what do you see?
You see either no effect or modest weight loss.
Hang on. So the highest quality evidence shows the opposite of what the headlines claim.
Pretty much. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics analyzed 15 randomized trials and found an average weight loss of, let me get this right, zero point 0.8 kilograms when people replaced sugar drinks with artificially sweetened ones.
That's not massive, but it's not weight gain.
Right. Not massive, but definitely not what the headlines say.
That's quite a different story. So, why do the headlines focus on the observational studies?
Because the associations are real and they're dramatic. Diet soda drinkers have higher BMI is true. It's just not causal. And most journalists either don't understand the difference or don't think their readers will care.
But people absolutely should care because the difference is whether you're being told to avoid something that might actually help you.
Yeah,
Okay, but actually, wait. I want to push back on something here.
okay.
You're saying the RCTs show no effect or modest weight loss, but you also said the microbiome changes are real. Those aren't short term weight changes. What if there's something happening to people's metabolism over years that we're not seeing in a 12-week trial?
That's a fair question.
Because when I was covering health stories, the thing that always frustrated me was when researchers would say, "We didn't see an effect in our 3-month study, therefore it's safe." But 3 months isn't someone's lifetime of consumption.
Right. Okay, so let me actually back up because you're touching on something important. Not all artificial sweeteners work the same way. When we say artificial sweeteners, we're talking about aspartame, sucralose, saccharin, stevia, and several others. They have completely different chemical structures.
So, lumping them all together is like saying vegetables cause health problems based on a study about potatoes.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And there was this really interesting study published in Cell in 2022, Suez and colleagues, I think, where they gave people saccharin, sucralose, aspartame, or stevia for 2 weeks and tracked their glucose responses and gut microbiome changes.
What did they find?
Different effects for different sweeteners. Saccharin and sucralose affected glucose responses in some people. Aspartame had minimal effects. Stevia, also minimal.
Okay.
But here's the critical part. Even within each sweetener group, only about half the people showed effects.
So it's person specific.
Exactly. The researchers explicitly said the effects were person specific, microbiome dependent, which means blanket claims about artificial sweeteners causing problems don't match the evidence.
Okay, but that doesn't answer my question about long term effects. 2 weeks still isn't 10 years.
No, it's not. And that's a legitimate research gap. We genuinely don't have long term human data. No 10-year randomized trials.
So there could be effects we haven't discovered yet.
Could be. That's possible. The WHO even classified aspartame as possibly carcinogenic last year, though they kept the acceptable daily intake levels the same because the evidence was limited.
Right, so they're being cautious but not alarmed.
Yeah, and that's appropriate. But we need more long term research, is very different from these products are causing metabolic disease.
I suppose that's fair. But it still feels like we're telling people it's fine based on relatively short term data.
Well, we're also telling them based on regulatory bodies FDA, WHO, Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, all saying these are safe at normal consumption levels. And when you replace sugar drinks with them, you get modest benefits for weight management.
Hmm, okay. I'm still a bit uncomfortable with the confidence level, but I take your point that the causation claim isn't supported.
And some people might have individual responses, especially with certain sweeteners like sucralose or saccharin. So, if someone notices they feel worse or their glucose spikes after consuming a particular sweetener, that's real for them.
So it's not diet soda is making you fat, it's different sweeteners affect different people differently. And if you're replacing sugar, you're probably better off.
Right. And if you're concerned, you could try eliminating them and see if you notice any personal effects. But the blanket fear mongering isn't supported by the evidence.
Okay, but let's go back to the microbiome thing because I want to understand this better. You said the changes are real. What does that actually mean?
So, we have solid evidence that consuming artificial sweeteners changes the composition of gut bacteria. That's documented in humans, not just animal studies.
Right.
But here's what the Food Research International authors, the ones who wrote the review that sparked these headlines, actually said. They wrote, study limitations do not allow for clear evidence that any sweetener has an effect on the gut microbiota in doses relevant to human consumption.
Wait, what?
I know.
So they're saying the changes happen, but we don't know if they matter at the doses people actually consume.
Right. And they also said the clinical implications remain unclear, meaning we see changes in bacteria composition, but we haven't proven those changes cause disease.
That's a massive gap between what the research shows and what the headlines claim.
And the Suez study I mentioned, that was 2 weeks of exposure. We have no idea if those changes persist long term or if they lead to actual health problems over years.
So we have interesting preliminary findings that got turned into this definitely causes metabolic disease.
That's the translation gap. And it happens because interesting preliminary findings doesn't drive clicks.
Right. God, this is frustrating. What frustrates me about this whole thing is how it erodes trust in science. People hear new study shows X, then 6 months later, actually, X is the opposite, and they just throw their hands up.
But that's not really what happened here, though. The science has been pretty consistent. Randomized trials show minimal to modest benefits. Observational studies show associations that are probably reverse causality. The problem is entirely in how it got translated to headlines.
That's a fair point. It's not the science that's inconsistent, it's the reporting.
Yeah, which is why understanding the difference between association and causation matters. It's not just academic, it's practical. People are making health decisions based on these headlines.
All right, so here's where I land on this. Diet soda probably isn't making you gain weight. The observational studies showing that are likely backward. Different sweeteners work differently, and the microbiome changes are real, but their health impact is unproven. Does that cover it?
That's it. The real story is more interesting than sweeteners are bad. It's about individual responses, study design quality, and the gap between we found something in the lab and this definitely matters for your health.
Which is a much better story if we could just get journalists to tell it properly,
We can dream.
says the woman who used to be one.
Fair.
Right, that's all for today's dive into the data. Just remember, everything we've discussed is our interpretation of published research and shouldn't replace professional medical advice.
Absolutely. If you're dealing with health or mental concerns, talk to your doctor, not just us data nerds on a podcast.
I'm Alex Barrett,
And I'm Bill Morrison
and we'll see you next time.
on Truth Seekers.
Until then, question everything.
But verify with data.